Right. So in the previous video, we really looked at the concept of water scarcity. Why is that even a problem? And what are some of the quantitative as well as the non-quantitative reasons of the water scarcity? Now, in this video, we will focus on the question of how do we really conserve and manage water? I mean, and when we talk about conserving and manage water, what we're trying to do here is really address the issues of the water scarcity. Okay, now before you just jump into the new sort of, okay, what are we doing today, we can think and look back at the past. So, and then that is through archaeological and historical records. Now, these records show that from ancient times, we have been constructing sophisticated hydraulic structures like dams built of stone rubble, reservoirs or lakes, embankments and canals for irrigation. And in fact, if you live one of these, near one of these areas, you may easily know that there is this old lake that has been since centuries, right? Or you might have found wells or things like that, or you might even have seen some wells in your own houses, right? So it really comes down to the region, but this conservation of water has been there in India since time immemorial. Now, not surprisingly, we have continued this tradition in modern India by building dams in most of our river basins. Now, here is some snippets about the hydraulic structures in ancient India. So, in the first century BC, okay, Shringaverapura near Allahabad had sophisticated water harvesting system channeling the flood water of the river Ganga. So this is very interesting. During the time of the Chandragupta Maurya, dams, lakes and irrigation systems were built extensively. Then you have evidences of sophisticated irrigation works found in Kalinga in Odisha, Nagarjunakonda in Andhra Pradesh, Bennur in Karnataka, and Kolhapur in Maharashtra, and so on. In the 11th century, Bhopal Lake, one of the largest artificial lakes of its time, was built. Can you imagine? So, this was in the 11th century, quite a few centuries ago. Now, in the 14th century, the tank that was built in Hauz Khas, Delhi, was constructed by Iltutmish for the supplying of water to the Siri fort area. So these are just some examples which just show that the water conservation and management was there in India already since several centuries ago. Now, let's look into the dams, right? So, what are dams and how do they really help us in conserving and managing water? So, we'll keep finding about dams as one of the useful structures to conserve and manage water. So, dams were traditionally built to impound rivers and rainwater that could be used to later irrigate agricultural fields. So, basically, it's just a way of storing rainwater that can then be later on used to irrigate. So today, dams are built but not just for irrigation but for electricity generation, water supply for domestic and industrial uses, flood control, recreation, inland navigation, and fish breeding. So we have really taken the uses of dam to the next level. So dams are now referred to as multi-purpose projects, where many uses of the impounded water are integrated with the another. So if you look at an example in the Sutlej Beas River Basin, the Bhakra Nangal project water is being used both for hydel power production, which means through water, and irrigation. Similarly, the Hirakud project in the Mahanadi Basin integrates the conservation of water with food control. Now, what I would suggest you is that when you get time after this video, do have a look at the uses of the like what's going on with the Hirakud Dam as well as the Bakranangal project. Just try to understand how where these projects are today, how they have evolved, and what are some of the uses. It will deepen your understanding of how dams are really used as multi-purpose projects. So, multi-purpose projects, typically they were launched after independence with their integrated water resource management approach. Now, this is an interesting thing. What do you mean by integrated water resources management? Now, these were thought to be as a vehicle that would lead the nation to development and progress, overcoming the handicap of its colonial past. So, Jawaharlal Nehru, the Prime Minister of India, proudly proclaimed that the dams are the temples of modern India. The reason being that it would integrate development of agriculture and the village economy with rapid industrialization and the growth of the urban economy. So this statement really says, what was the anticipated role of building these dams. Now, we talked about dam, but here is this little snippet of information. It talks about what a dam is structurally. As you can see, in this picture, what you really see is this big barrier that has been built, and there's like lot of storage of water, right? And then you are able to control water through these outlets, and there's a lot more sophisticated, where you have hydroelectricity. There are a lot more structures that are built beneath the dam, into the ground, where you can use this water for generating electricity. So let's read a little bit about what is a dam. So dam is a barrier across flowing water. It's very simple. It obstructs, directs, or retards the flow, often creating a reservoir, a lake, or an impoundment. So dam refers to the reservoir rather than the structure. So dam doesn't mean the structure. Normally we would just think that dam is this whole structure that we have built, but actually dam means this reservoir of water over here. Now most dams have a section called a spillway or wire over through which it is intended that the water will flow either intermittently or continuously. So this is the spillway. You can think about this region. This is the spillway. Now dams are classified according to structure, intended purpose, or height. So based on the structure and the materials used, dams are classified as timber dams, embankment dams, or masonry dams with several subtypes. Now according to the height, dams can be categorized as large dams and major dams, or alternatively as low dams, medium height, and high dams. Now if you are interested in knowing more about it, again, Google is your friend, the internet is your friend. Do have a search about it, just a casual reading, and see if there are any interesting patterns that emerge about the dams. So now in recent years, the multi-purpose projects and large dams have come under great scrutiny and opposition for a variety of reasons. So the first few paragraphs that we looked at really talk about, how dams are very helpful and what is their intention, how they help serve the growth. Now, in the next, section paragraph, what we're looking is what are some of the drawbacks of doing this, right? What are some of the challenges? And we start with the scrutiny and opposition for a variety of reasons. So first one is regulating and damming of rivers affects their natural flow, causing poor sediment flow and excessive sedimentation at the bottom of the reservoir, resulting in rockier stream beds and poorer habitats for the river's aquatic life. So it's not good for ecology. Because you are changing the natural flow of rivers, this is the issue. So dams, they also fragment rivers, making it difficult for aquatic fauna to migrate, especially for spawning. The reservoirs that are created on the floodplains also submerge the existing vegetation and soil, leading to its decomposition over a period of time, because wherever you have the reservoir, all of that area just is submerged under the water. So these are the ecological reasons. Then there is also the multipurpose projects and large dams have been the cause for many new environmental movements like the Narmada Bachao Andolan and the Tehri Dam Andolan, and so on. So resistance to these projects has primarily been due to large-scale displacement of local communities. This is a key idea, because if you are going to build a dam, which is kind of a big reservoir on the land where many people might be affected, right? So and it does lead to a large scale displacement. The government needs to acquire that land before they can build the dam. So the local people often had to give up their land, livelihood, and their meager access and control over resources for the greater good of the nation. So if the local people are not benefiting from such projects, then who is really benefited? It's a question worth asking. Perhaps the landowners and the Raj farmers, industrialists, and the few urban centers. Take the case of the landless in a village. What does he really gain from this project? So let's look at a little bit about the Narmada Bachao Andolan, or the Save Narmada movement, which is an NGO, a non-governmental organization that mobilized tribal people, farmers, environmentalist and human rights activist against the Sardar Sarovar Dam being built across the Narmada River in Gujarat. Now, this is interesting, and I am aware of this because I am from Gujarat. And yes, I have seen the ups and downs of the whole movement that still keeps going on. It originally focused on the environmental issues that were related to the trees that would be submerged under the dam water. Now, recently, it has refocused the aim to enable poor citizens, especially the outstees, that is, the displaced people, to get full rehabilitation facilities from the government. People felt that suffering would not be in vain, and they accepted the trauma and displacement, believing in the promise of irrigated fields and plentiful harvest. So, often, the survivors of Riand told us that they accepted their sufferings as sacrifice for the sake of their nation. But now, after 30 bitter years of being adrift, their livelihood having been even more precarious, they are asking, are we the only ones chosen to make sacrifices for the nation? So the idea is that yes, the nation should benefit, but at the same time, it should not be at a cost. It should not be just a few people who have to continue to suffer because they have been displaced, right? So this is from this book, and yeah, you can find more about the Sarvada Sarovar project at this website that is given over here. So let's also now look at the irrigation part, right? So we talked about the first issue was that basically the first kind of disadvantage or impact is on the ecological aspect. The second one is the impact on the local communities. Now the third one, let's look at the irrigation aspect of it. So the irrigation has changed the cropping pattern of many regions, with farmers shifting to water intensive and commercial crops. This also has ecological consequences like the salinization of the soil. Saline is like how salty it is. At the same time, it has transformed the social landscape, that is increasing social gap between the richer landowners and the landless poor. As we can see, the dams did create conflicts between people wanting different uses and benefits from the same water resources. In Gujarat, the Sabarmati Basin farmers were agitated and almost caused a riot over the higher priority given to water supply in urban areas, particularly during droughts. Interstate water disputes are also becoming common with regard to sharing the cost and benefits of a multi-purpose project. So you can see this is one aspect of this. This is all. The third area is the whole redistribution, right? Redistribution of the water, as well as its, you can also call it as management, right? Now you might want to also look at the Krishna Godavari dispute due to the objections raised by Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh governments. So this is regarding the diversion of more water at Koyna by the Maharashtra government for a multi-purpose project. This would reduce downstream flow in their states with adverse consequences for agriculture and industry. At this point in time, you might want to make a list of interstate water disputes, understand what are the key points of the dispute and how are these being dealt with. And you might also want to then compare the impact of these disputes with the stated intention of why those dams were built in the first place. Are they achieving their objectives or not? Okay, so here is this I would say the map of India with all the key rivers. Now I won't discuss all of this, but you might just want to have a look at like different regions. Just study it, because you may have questions that will lead you to ask you to maybe just write down these some of the regions or the maps and just talk about it, right? So you can see, for example, you can also look at look, where is the Sardar Sarovar? It is located here. Let me change the color. So it's kind of located here. Why is it kind of over located here? You might want to think about that. Then you look at this Pravara Dam over here. Then you have this Koyna. This is where we talked about the Krishna Godavari, I would say the dispute on that dam. So think about it, and maybe when you are looking at the disputes, just see where the dams are and see what the disputes are. Mostly really interstate areas. Okay, so Now, continuing on that, most of the objections to the projects arose due to their failure to achieve the purposes for which they were built. So, this is what we were discussing earlier, right? That, are these projects really achieving the purpose for which they were built? So, ironically, the dams were constructed to control floods, have triggered floods due to sedimentation in the reservoir. Moreover, big dams have mostly been unsuccessful in controlling floods at the time of excessive rainfall. You may have seen or read how release of water from dams during heavy rains aggravated the flood situation in Maharashtra and Gujarat in 2006. The floods have not only devastated life and property but have caused extensive soil erosion. Sedimentation also meant that the floodplains were deprived of silt, a natural fertilizer, the further adding to the problem of the land degradation. So sedimentation simply means that, as the river is flowing and you have built this reservoir, it doesn't flow anymore. You are stopping the natural flow of the river. So all of the silt that was falling with it, it just gets sedimented. And so you are depriving the silt from flowing further into the lower areas of where the river would flow. So it was also observed that the multipurpose project induced earthquakes, caused waterborne diseases and pests, and pollution resulting from excessive use of water. And here you can see some information about floods. Yeah, there is this whole thing about what kind of safety should be taken, and what do you do during the floods. So a good idea here is just collect information about flood. Like even recently there was flood in Pakistan, and we have seen, and not just that, there are usually floods in many parts of India during the monsoons. So just read about what has happened in the current floods. And wherever the floods are happening, are the dams near it, or has there been any, let's say, contribution from the dams to the floods? Okay, so yeah, I think this is the we'll stop the video here. So in this video we really looked at the whole idea of dams, what, and really kind of the idea of conservation of water, and redistribution for it. So we looked at the benefits of the dams. We also looked at the challenges, right? 3 challenges of it, and some of the issues around that have arisen because of building the dams as a multi-purpose projects. In the next video we will look at the rainwater harvesting.